Okay, so now what we're going to be doing is we're going to be shifting gears and we're going to be doing an AutoCAD tutorial that is going to walk us through creating a section view. Okay, and the part that we're going to be focusing on is going to be this bearing design. So this is the isometric view of the actual drawing itself. But if we turn the page, you are going to find on page 5, or I'm sorry, on page 10.5, this is going to be the two views that we're going to be creating. Now, we are not going to be putting our drawing on a drawing border yet, and we're not going to be adding dimensions. We are just going to be drawing the two views. We're going to be adding cross section or cross hatching as well as the cutting plane line, but we aren't going to be adding any text or dimensioning at this time. Okay, so the book takes a little bit different approach than I would. I think they kind of take the long way around. So what they end up doing, if you look at the pages going forward, they create like a principal view right view. So if this is our front view, they create a right view without the cross hatching. And then what they do is they take that view and they convert it over. So they first put in hidden lines, then they convert it over and they make a section view. I know. I think that's a little like, let's just get to the section view. So I'm going to deviate a little bit. We're going to create this as we see it here without the border, without the dimensions, but we're not going to follow step by step what the book is going to do. Okay. We're going to get right into the section view. So what we're going to create first though, our process is we're going to create, if you would, the front view of our part. And again, if you want to kind of go back to the pictorial, this is the bearing design that we're going to be creating. So we're looking, if you would, in this case, looking straight down on it is going to be our front view. Okay. And then we're running a cutting plane line here, pointing to the left, and we're going to create this section view on the right-hand side. Okay, so the new things here, first of all, are going to be kind of visualizing this section view, putting a cutting plane line in, and then adding the cross-hatching, okay, to the appropriate areas. So I'm going to go over to AutoCAD, and we're going to create this left side or the front view, if you would, of our part. So I have already opened up my English or my inch template. Okay. Now, as you're here, a couple things to just kind of keep in mind. Number one, make sure you're on the object line layer. Okay. If you have your template set up appropriately, that should be the layer that comes right in, which is nice. Then you don't have to worry about changing that. And the other thing is I am going to have my line width display on. If you need to add that one, if you go to the 3 horizontal lines in the bottom right-hand corner, line weight is kind of in the middle-ish right here. Make sure that it has a check in front of it. And then go down and make sure it's activated or it's like grayish blue color. This allows you, I just like it because when we do our object lines, they're kind of nice and bold and they're easier to see. Okay. All right. Now, as we look at, I'm going to kind of go back and forth here. As we look at this view, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the larger circle here first, okay? And I'm going to put the origin as my 0, 0. That way, when I put my holes and my arcs up here, they're absolute coordinates and it's just easier to get them in. So there's kind of an obvious 0, 0. So I'm going to put my first circle right there. That circle, as we see it, okay? The dimension for it is over on that section view, and it is the 2.5 inch diameter. So that's going to be my first circle that I put in. So I'm going to go back to AutoCAD over here. And I moved by panning, pushing down on my middle mouse button, the roller, and kind of pushing in a position. I have my 0, 0 in the middle here. So I'm going to start with a circle center diameter, and specify my center point. Remember, we can't click to the origin, but we're going to want to put in 0, 0. So it goes right to that origin. And then now it's asking me for the diameter. And here we want to put in 2.5. Okay. Then what we're going to do, going back over here, you're going to notice that this is an arc on the top here. It's a radius of. Now, you're going to notice that they have fractional dimensions. I'm going to tell you, we're never going to do fractional dimensions in mechanical design. The current standard is to convert those all to decimals. So we're going to be putting in everything in as decimals. Now, this is a radius of 3/4 of an inch, which would be 0.75. And that's the radius here on the top and on the bottom. You're going to notice that they're separated by 3.5 inches. So from the center, the distance up is going to be half of 3.5 or 1.75, right? Okay. So that's going to be the coordinate that I end up using going to the top. So I'm going to do another, this time I'm going to do a circle radius because it's giving me the radius of the circle. So I'm going to do circle center radius. And it's asking me for the center point. Since I put this center here at my absolute zero, I don't have to do any at symbol business. And that's one of the nice things about it. So X-wise, horizontally, I'm not moving anything. So this is going to be 0, comma, and I'm going up a positive 1.75, enter. And that's going to be, if you would, the center of the circle. This is a radius circle, so it's going to be 0.75 is going to be my radius. And now it's going to be the radius on the top, okay? I'm going to do that again. So I'm going to go back up to my circle center radius. You could press enter if you wanted to repeat the previous command. My center this time is going to be 0, comma, negative 1.75, okay? So it's going to go down below here. And then my radius again is going to be 0.75. Okay. All right. Now, as we look back underneath, I've got circle for the top, for the middle, and for the bottom. But you'll notice that they're not circles there. They're the tangent lines to, you know, the outsides. So we're going to add those tangent lines top and bottom. So I'm going to just do the line command. Now, if I go close up here, you're going to notice that my running object snaps, okay, and I'm going to go down there and look at those. I have endpoint, center, quadrant, intersection, and I have perpendicular. So tangent isn't one of mine. Yours might be. Okay, that's okay. You remember, it's a personal preference on those. Those are my running object snaps. I do have my object snaps menu up here, so I can override those running object snaps by clicking on the snap to tangent. Or there's a third way, and the one that I like, and just because it's right by my cursor, is when I want to specify my first line, instead of clicking up on the top or changing my running object snaps, I do shift right mouse button, and then I get all the object snaps up here, right here. Okay. And I'm going to click on tangent. It's right below quadrant. Okay. And now it ignores any other running object snaps that I have, and it focuses just on the tangent, just like if I would click the toolbar on top. So I'm going to click here up on the left-hand side, but then for my second point, I got to do shift right mouse button again, tangent, and then go here on that same side for the larger circle. Now I want to stop this so I can hit escape or enter. And then I'm going to hit enter again to go right back into that command. Shift right mouse button, tangent, and I'm going to go on the other side, and then tangent on the larger circle on the opposite side. Escape to end or enter, and then enter one more time, and then do that for the bottom. So shift right mouse button, tangent, shift right mouse button, tangent again. Now you might say, couldn't we have mirrored that stuff? Sure, you can. There's 8 different ways that we can do the very same thing. Okay. So I just want, you know, sometimes just kind of do it the way you feel that you think it's going to be the fastest or the most efficient or the way that you see it. Okay. So if you do take a different route, that's totally fine, as long as you end up with the correct results. Okay. We want to use our object snaps because, as we know, we have to have good geometry. And we don't want to just get close, right? That's not how we do things. So, so make sure that you are using the running object snaps. Okay, now we want to get rid of the parts that we don't need. So if we look back, we are going to keep the large circle on the inside. Okay, the large circle stays, but the bottom portions and the top portions of the lower and the upper circles are the ones that we can get rid of. So I'm going to go back over here. I'm going to go up to my little scissors, and I'm going to trim away the parts I don't need of those smaller 2 circles, preserving that large circle in the middle. Remember, if you end up hitting something that you weren't supposed to, you can always do the undo key, okay, and start over, right? Well, now's a good time to probably save our drawing as we would want it to be saved. So in this case, it's called Bearing Design. So I'm going to do a File, Save As. Navigate to the directory that you want to go to. I do. I don't know if I'm going to do module assignment, just tech drafting. And this is going to be bearing, see, I like all caps. Bearing_design. There we go. Okay. And you should see up on the top of your screen there the file name change. Okay. All right. All right. Now, let's see what else we can add. I guess it doesn't hurt to add the other circles here. So I'm going to add the counter bore hole here. If we look down here, here are the dimensions for the counter bore hole. The diameter of 3/8, that's going to be the diameter that goes through. That's the smaller one. Okay. And then you're going to notice that we have kind of this open box. That is a counter bore. From the last time we were together, we talked about counter bores and how they kind of bury the head of a fastener down below the surface. Okay. So it's telling us that the diameter of that counter bore, so the larger circle, is 5/8 of an inch. Okay. So those are the two diameters that are going to share the same center as the, half circle, which was a full circle before. It shares that same center with that. Okay. So we're going to put that on the top and the bottom. So going back to AutoCAD over here, these are two diameters. So I'm going to do a circle center radius. I'm going to do the top one here. Now, I wanted to share the same center as that half circle-ish that I have on the top, or that arc that I have on the top. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to go over it to activate it. And we end up seeing that crosshairs in the middle appear. So then when we get close to it, it's going to, if you have your running object snaps on center, it's going to snap to that center. Does that make sense, everybody? Okay, so when I get close there and I see that circle in green, I snap or I click, and then it's gonna automatically share that same center. Okay. And then the diameter is going to be, I'm going to put 0.375 in first. Okay. And I can do that very same thing. So I can hit enter, go back down, activate that center here, and go 0.375 to, oopsie, that was a radius. Sorry, undo. See, you can just do U, center, diameter. There we go, 0.375. There we go. Now to put the other one in, do the same thing, center, diameter. You can activate this circle to share the same center, or the half circle, because now there's this one here. So I'm going to click, and this one's going to be 0.625 for 5/8. And then I'm going to do that same thing, activate that center, 0.625 for that one. Okay, that's my top view. Questions there? Going back underneath, then we want to see what are the two additional hole sizes we need to put here. The middle bore is 1.5 inch diameter. So we're going to put that one in. And then the counter bore that we see here is going to be 2 inches. So we need two more circles, a diameter of 2 and a diameter of 1.5. So I'm going to go back over here. Circle, center, diameter. Activate that center. Remember, we can't click on or snap to the origin that's there. You have to either put a 0, 0 in or activate the center from another feature. So I'm going to do 2 and then center, diameter, activate that center, and then 1.5. Okay. All right. Not a bad time to do a quick save. So as we look at this view, we look over here, visible line, object line wise, we have everything in place. The only thing we don't have is the hidden lines over here and the center lines and the cutting plane line, but we'll add those in a little bit. We will get the hidden lines from when we do our section view over here and we add the actual circle. Then we can do quadrants from there. Okay. So now we're really ready to generate our section view over on the right-hand side. Okay, so that's what we're going to do next. So as we look here in AutoCAD, I want to make sure that you have a couple things going. Number one, I want to make sure that you have the show snapping reference lines. It's the one that's over to the left of our running object snaps. Okay. I also want to make sure that you have on ortho because all of our lines in that side view are vertical or horizontal. So we want to make sure that that's on there as well. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I am going to start by activating the top of our arc here. Okay. So I'm going to start my line command and I'm going to activate the top here. I am not clicking on it. All I'm doing is like kind of letting it know like, hey, find that quadrant. And now when I move over to the right, do you see how we have those dashed green lines? Those are the ones that we want to stay on. We want to keep in line with that top. Now kind of go like here-ish. I don't know how to say, but I'm going to left click and now this is going to be my vertical line going down. Okay. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to activate the bottom. Now, if you look at the part, you could add it together and say, oh, that's 5 inches. So you could push and enter 5 if you wanted to. Or we can activate the bottom here, kind of come back, and now you'll notice that we have that snapping reference line. So I'm going to just do that. Notice that it is 5, okay? Now I'm going to continue. I'm going to push to the left, okay? Now, if I go underneath here, that's going to be the thickness of, I'll call it kind of the base, okay? And if we look on the top here, the dimension for that is 1/2 inch, okay? So I'll go back to AutoCAD. I'm going to push in that direction, and I'm just going to enter 0.5, okay? Then what we're going to do is we're going to move up, okay? And we're going to reactivate the larger diameter down here, and we're going to come back. Make sure it activates. Sometimes you have to go over it twice or 3 times. Okay. Come on. Come on. There it goes. And then what you're going to do is you're going to snap to that line. Everybody get that one? Okay. Then we're going to go up. And here we have to go back to our drawing. You're going to notice that the total height of that part is 2 inches. We already took 1/2 inch, right, for our base. So now that's going to be 1.5 inches going to the left. I go back over here, continue. I'm going to go 1.5, enter. Okay. Then we're going to go up. Now we know the diameter of that outside portion is 2 inches. So we can push up and just do, I'm sorry, 2.5 inches, 2.5 inches. Or we can activate the quadrant and come over and it's going to snap up to it to the 2.5 inch mark. Okay. Then we're going to go back to the right. We could do 1.5 here, 1.5, or we could activate that corner to be in line with it as well. Okay, either way. And then we're going to go back up. You could either go back over to the top of our arc or to the end point of the line that we already have in place, and it'll snap to that. And then because this is a closed loop, you can do C, enter, and it'll close that loop. Okay, or that figure. Okay. Not a bad idea to do a quick save here. Okay. So now we've created the outside of our part. Okay. Now we've got to do the inside portions. So let's take a peek. Remember, there's a cutting plane line going through here. So we're literally cutting, sawing this, in half. And you're going to notice what that gives us the opportunity for are the clean edges, the object line edges for each one of the elements here. Okay. So let's start. I want to start in the middle here, okay, with our little counter bore and then the through hole. So the through hole, these 2 lines right here, they line up. Now, if you ever need to, you can always take a straight edge and be like, okay, where do those line up? All right, so this is here. And if I go down, here is the counter bore. And then the inside one is the through line. Do you kind of see that? Okay. So if you ever have to do that, don't be afraid to grab an edge of a piece of paper or some sort of a straight edge to kind of line things up. So I'm going to create, I think I want to do the counter bore first, actually. I'm going to do the counter bore first. That's a 2-inch diameter. So we're going to go over in line here. The depth of that counter bore is 1/4 inch. And then we're going to go down and then in, and then we'll create the inside hole. And it just kind of reduces the amount of trimming we have to do later. That's why I kind of thought that would be better. So I'm going to do my line command. I'm going to activate the counter bore. So the middle hole here. Okay. And I'm going to go over. And when I get the X with that front surface, I'm going to click and then I'm going to push to the right and I'm going to input 0.25. Then I'm going to go down. Now I know this hole is a 2-inch diameter, so I could just input 2, enter, or you can activate the quadrant of that circle as well. And then I'm simply going to go back perpendicular, and I'm going to click when I get to that line, and then escape or enter to end. Okay, so now my counter bore is in place. Now I'm going to do the inside. Okay, so I'm going to do my line. So my inside hole is that 1.5 inch. I'm going to activate that quadrant. And now this way I can go to the bottom of the counter bore to start my line. That's where I would avoid a trim. And then I'm going to go straight through the part to the other side. Now I'm going to do that very same thing at the bottom. Another line, activate that quadrant, go over, 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 click when I get to the bottom of that counter bore, and then click when I get to the bottom of the part. Okay. Those snapping reference lines are so handy. They're so nice to use. That is something you guys don't think it's a big deal, but they didn't have that years ago. Okay, they've been in existence for probably 10 years, but years ago they didn't. Did a lot of offsetting, in that case, and generating those things, and then doing a lot of trimming and extending. Okay, so then now let's go back over here. Let's see what we got underneath. So we have created, this area here. Let's put that hole in there since we're in that particular area. So to put this hole in, this is a diameter of 3/8 of an inch. And from the bottom on center, this is 1.5 inches. Okay, so now, there are a couple ways that you could do this. You could offset 1.5 inches, find that intersection, and you could put the hole there. But we can also enter our coordinates, okay? And again, it kind of reduces the amount of cleanup work we have to do later on. So I am going to do a circle center diameter. And we are going to snap from. Now, we don't have a line going through here, right? But we have a vertical line that has a midpoint, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to use our snap from command. So on your toolbar, or if you do shift right mouse button, the snap from should be on here. Yeah, from is the second one from the top, okay? And we're going to activate, we're going to go along this line, but you're going to notice there's nothing there, okay? What we want to find is the midpoint. I don't have midpoint as a running object snap. So we need to go up to the top here and find midpoint in our object snaps, or shift right mouse button midpoint. So click on midpoint. And now notice that it goes to a little triangle. That's the midpoint of that line, which is the center of the part. So I'm going to click on that. That's my from. Okay. Now I need to do the @ symbol because I want to snap from that midpoint. And in the X direction, I want to go -1.5, but in the Y, 0. So comma 0, enter. And now here's the center of my part, okay, or of my hole. And then this is going to be, oh no, I got the dimension wrong, didn't I? I did. So hit the escape if you were following me. If you look closely, I read that number as 1.5. That's 1 1/4. I thought it looked a little close. So we'll just undo that, hit escape, and we will put the right dimension in this time, but we'll do that same process. So that's fine. So we're going to do a circle center diameter. So we have to start our command again. We're going to do a snap from midpoint, and we're going to activate that midpoint. Okay. And then now we're going to do the @ symbol, shift to -1.25, comma 0, enter. There, that looks better for center. And then our diameter is 0.375, enter. There we go. Okay. Not a bad idea to do a quick save. Now, as long as we've created this hole, why don't we do the hidden lines in the other view as well, okay? So if we go back, you're going to notice that when we have this hole, now the section view, we don't have any hidden lines in, but over here, this is a primary view. This is not a section view, so we do need hidden lines in here. And these 2 hidden lines represent the quadrants of either side of the hole that we just showed. So let's go back to AutoCAD. we need to go up and change our layer to the hidden line layer, okay? And we're going to grab a line, and we're going to activate the quadrant of our 3/8 inch diameter. We're not going to click, 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 click. We're going to keep going until we hit the side of that inside hole. Then we're going to go across. Now, the problem over here is that it's not activating straight through. So we have to go beyond our hole, our outside of our part, and just left click. Okay. We're going to have to trim that away. We'll trim that away after we get the bottom line in. So we're going to do the line command again, activate the quadrant, go over, 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 click when we get there, but then go past the part and then hit enter or escape. Now we'll trim this back to the outside of that part. Okay. And then it's in place. Okay. All right. So we have those elements. Then we need to add our counter bores back up here. We need to change our layer back to object line layer. So we are going to be adding in these counter bores. Okay. Now the dimensions again are down here. The smaller hole going through is 3/8 of an inch. The counter bore is a diameter of 5/8 of an inch, and it's at a depth of 1/8 of an inch. Okay. So that means that this dimension right here, how deep it is 1/8 of an inch or 0.125. So going to AutoCAD over here, I'm going to do the top one just because. You can do the bottom one first, it doesn't matter. So I'm going to do the line command. I'm going to activate the quadrant of my larger circle, the 5/8 inch counter bore. I'm going to go to the right, to the right, to the right. I'm going to click when I get to my surface. I'm going to push in and I'm going to enter 0.125 because it's 1/8 of an inch deep. Okay. And then I know that this diameter is 5/8 of an inch. So I'm just going to push down and I'm going to go a distance 0.625 and then perpendicular back. Okay. To the edge. And then I'm going to put the smaller hole in. So back to the line command, activate my quadrant. Over, over, over. And then at the bottom of the counter bore to the bottom of the part. Okay. And then do that very same thing one more time. Activate that quadrant on the bottom of the counter bore to the bottom of the part. Okay. Got one of those in. Now, you could do a mirror command if we wanted to, but I'm going to show you, we can do a copy command. I don't know if we've done that one yet. Okay. So we can copy this down here. So to do that, the copy command is right below the move command. Okay. I'm going to hit copy and it wants me to select the items I want to copy. So I'm just going to put a window, click, click, not a click drag around those elements right there. Okay. I'm going to hit enter and it's going to ask me for my base point. Now, I don't have to be over here for the base point. I'm going to activate the center of the circles over in the other view. And I'm going to go down and notice it's grabbing a copy. And my second point is going to be the center of the other set of holes. Okay. So, and that went down. Now I can continue making copies, but I'm done. I can either hit escape or enter and I've got that down there. Okay. Just another way. You could mirror it if you wanted to. Oh, you can do a copy as well. All right. Good time to do another save. So all I have left are my center lines, right? Okay. My center. Oh, no. I have my cutting plane line. That's right. So if I go back underneath here, notice we have our cutting plane line going down the very middle of our front view. Okay. Now, remember order of precedence. Okay. Precedence is what lines are more important than others. A cutting plane line is more important than a center line. Okay. So we do not want to have lines over the top of each other. So we're going to put our cutting plane line down. And then we're going to add our center lines as individual lines, not the center marks like we had seen in the past. Okay. Otherwise, if we do a center mark, it's going to have the horizontal line here, but then there's going to be a line underneath. And that would be two lines on top of each other, which is bad business. Okay. I'm not going to say it's illegal. Nobody's going to give you a ticket, but it's not good practice. We want to do it the right way. So we're going to go back to AutoCAD here. And we're going to add our cutting plane line first. So I'm just going to zoom out just a little bit. And I'm going to change my layer to C plane, cutting plane. Okay. And now I'm going to just do a line. Okay. And I'm going to activate the center of kind of one of my holes here on the top, but I'm not going to click. I'm just going to go above. So I want to go a little bit above, kind of like when we do center lines, we go beyond the part. So I'm going to click above, and then I'm going to go straight through and then go down below about the same distance. Okay. I'm going to zoom in here. You can kind of see, hopefully, that extension down below. Okay. So that's my cutting plane line. All right. Might as well finish it up. So the other part of the cutting plane line we need to do is we need to add the arrowhead over here. Now, a simple way to do it without reconstructing everything is to just use what we call a leader. Okay, a leader is something that we're going to get more use out of when we do dimensioning, but it's going to be aligned with an arrowhead on it. That's what a leader is. So we're going to click on the leader command, and over away from our line, we're just going to make a left click and a horizontal line. And if you zoom in on it, as you kind of make that line, notice an arrowhead develops pointing to the left. Okay, do you see that? So I'm clicked, I'm moving to the right, and then I'm going to left click again. Okay, so I'm just going to have a random length. You're going to notice that it's going into a text editing mode, because what a leader is, it's an arrowhead with a line, but then you can write a note in back of it. We're just going to hit escape to just end that command, because we don't need any wording. We just want really this line with the arrowhead. Okay. Now, if I click on this, this is all one line. Okay. I need to explode it. So I make my leader, and now I need to explode it. So I'm gonna click this command just down below the eraser. It's called explode. And what it's gonna do, I'm gonna just left click on there, select it, select it, and then hit enter. And now when I click on it, the line is separate than the arrowhead. And that's what I want. Okay. Okay. So now we're going to put our leader on the end of our cutting plane line. So I'm just going to do the move command. I'm going to window around or select that. Okay. And then I'm just going to move it down to the endpoint over here. Okay. All right. Now, if your line is kind of long, mine is kind of long. Okay. I'm not really crazy about it. I want to move my arrowhead so it's a little bit closer to the cutting plane line. I'm just going to do a move, and I'm just going to select the arrowhead. Okay. With my window, hit enter. And now just above it, I'm going to have my ortho still on. I'm just going to scooch this backwards a little bit. Okay. All right. And there's a little bit of line left over. What we can do now is we can trim that back. Okay. And it's going to trim it back to that arrowhead. Do you see that? If I didn't explode that line, it wouldn't allow me to make that adjustment. That's why we exploded it. Okay. Let's do that again for the bottom. So you know how to put these in, because you're going to have to do this for your homework. So I'm going to go down to the bottom here again. We're going to do that very same process. When you do it in your assignment, you can just copy those down, but I just want to show you how to do it again. So we're going to do the leader. Okay. Click on the leader, and you're just going to go away from your part, left click, and then move to the right, and then left click again. Just get a length of line. It's going to want to put text at the end there. Just hit escape to enter out of that. So we just get the straight line with the arrow. Now we're going to explode it. Okay. We're going to click on it because it's all one right now. And we're just going to hit enter. Now it made it from one entity to two, an arrowhead on a line. Now we're going to move. And we're going to window around it, click, click, don't click and drag, enter. And then I just grab the endpoint and I put it on the endpoint of my cutting plane line. Okay. Again, that arrowhead is kind of far away. So I'm just going to do the move command, and I'm just going to window around just the arrowhead, enter. Then I'm going to left click and just move it horizontally. Make sure your ortho is on, and right about there. And then I'm going to trim away that extra portion of the line that's there. Okay. And then you want to just make sure that they're about the same length. Okay. Now, in this case, we only have one section view, one cutting plane line. We don't need to label it. Okay. So don't worry about labeling those cutting plane lines. Okay. All right. So now we have our cutting plane line through. Now we're going to add in all of our center lines. So let's do the center lines here for our front view. We're going to change our layer to our center plane or center line layer. I'm going to zoom in here and we are going to just create a line. Okay. And we're going to go just we're going to activate the quadrant. So we're in line with the quadrant, but we're going to go outside of that circle, left click, and then we're going to go out beyond and left click again. Okay. And escape. Okay. Now you're going to notice that the center line is a solid line, but we want to make sure we have our dash in there, right? So let's just left click that line. Then we're going to right click because we only want to change the line scale, the line type scale for this one line. And we're going to right click and we're going to go down to properties, okay, of that line. And now a dialog box on the left-hand side is going to come up. And I think it's, hold on. I want to make this wider. Here we go. Okay, line type scale is underneath line type by layer, but then there's this one. We want to change that. Let's see what 0.5 does. It didn't do anything. Let's see what 0.25 does. Did it do anything? Let me see. Did that one go? What happened? How come I got a big long line? Hold on. I don't know what happened to my line. Hold on. Sometimes when I'm talking and doing at the same time, I might click an extra thing. Let me go beyond here. There we go. Yeah. So 0.25, notice now I get my little break in there. Okay. Then we want to, now here's an option. You can either copy that down or you can just redo what we just did. And I'll redo it just to give another shot to kind of see. So I'm going to click the origin to be in line with it. Then I'm going to go across. And there we go. And it remembered for that center line, we want it to be 0.25 scale. Okay. I will be checking your line type scale here. I don't want to have, even if it's on the correct layer, you want to be able to notice that that's a center line. Okay. So make sure that you're changing those line type scales when appropriate so that we can see that it's a center line and not a solid line. Okay. We need to do that very same thing for our large diameter here. So we're going to do a line again, activate that quadrant, go outside of it, and then go horizontal, 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 then the other side, and there we go. So in our front view, that looks good. Now we want to add our center lines over on the right-hand side, okay? So the center lines on the right-hand side, we can use the automated one. So if we go to the annotate tab and we go to center mark, for instance, on that hole right here, we can use the center mark on it. Okay. Hit escape. And then the center line we can use for these. But notice that when you click on these two horizontal lines, it shortens that center line. You need to extend it. It has to go beyond the part. So one quick way to do it is to left click on it. You're going to get what we call grips. And we can drag these grips out so that it's a little bit longer beyond. Okay. Notice that we don't have the lines here or the breaks. So I'm going to left click properties. I'm sorry, right click properties and change that line type scale to 0.25. Okay. And then hit escape to release those grips. And then here too, you could do a copy on this. So if I wanted to copy that down, trying to get this on here, I'm going to go back to my home ribbon. I'm going to do the copy command right down below, move. And then now I'm going to select that center line, enter. And I'm simply going to take this one edge and go down to this edge, and it's going to be then the center line there too. Okay. The last center line I need to enter is going to be through here. So I can't do the top and bottom. Otherwise, it's going to go over the top of the center line for our hole. So you have to do two separate center lines. So I'm going to do a line, and I'm going to go to the left here and past the end of the part, and then a line, and I'm going to go to the right past the end of the part. Okay. So make sure that those extend. Quick file save. The very last thing I want to do is I want to add my cross hatching. Okay. This is the test to make sure that your geometry looks good. Okay. So we're going to change our layer to crosshatch, the X hatch at the bottom. It's the yellow. And then we're going to click on the crosshatch command. The crosshatch command is in the draw menu. It's below the ellipse. Okay. To the right of arc. So we're going to click on that. And what's going to happen is our ribbon is going to change here. Okay. So first of all, we want to pick the type of hatching we want to use. And you're going to notice there's a darker gray around the ANSI 31. Okay. And that's just kind of like evenly spaced lines. You can, if you arrow down here, you can see that there are a number of different hatch patterns that you could get at. Okay. The ones that we use in mechanical design are going to be ANSI 31, ANSI 32, ANSI 33, and that's about it. Okay, those three we kind of cycle through, and those are the most popular ones. So I'm going to click on ANSI 131 or make sure that that one's selected. And what we're going to do is we're going to move our cursor. I'm not clicking into an area that I would want to hatch. Okay, and notice it fills that area. It's giving me a preview. If I like the way it looks, I left click. Okay, before I left click, I want to show you something though. Okay, you're going to notice up on top here, you have some options. So even though my pattern is already selected, I can change the angle of that pattern. Right now, the angle is at 0, which is a standard 45 degrees if you would. So if I click on that angle, I can change that to, let's say, 15 degrees, okay? And if I do that, if I go in here, notice my angle changed now for my hatching. Do you see that when I preview it? It's more upright than 45 degrees-ish, okay? So I'm going to go back to 0. So you can change that angle if you want to. So 0 is kind of like the standard. The other thing that you can change is the scale. So you'll notice that right now, scale is 1, okay? If I want that to be closer together, I'm going to change it to something less than 1, like 0.5. So if I go here, notice how it's closer together, okay? Notice that if I do it closer together, that's pretty close, all right? That's too close. So 1 in our case does seem to make the most sense. It looks good. But if I go to 2, for instance, you see how much farther apart that is? 1 looks better, doesn't it? So you can adjust that to just look good, all right? That's kind of my point. I'm going to go back to 1. So those settings looked really good. All right. So now I am going to left click in all of the areas for which I have hatching, or where I would, if you would, when I slice this, it's going to cut material. Okay. So I'm going to hit escape there when I'm done. Now, if you don't have closed edges, if you have lines that are overlapping, it either might not hatch in those areas that you go into, or it's going to go beyond the borders. That's when you know you don't have good geometry. So that's a good test. Okay. All right. So that, I believe, do a save, and that is our final item. Now, because we are not going to be handing this in just yet for our practice problems, we're going to do another tutorial the next time we're together that's going to have to do with auxiliary views, okay? You certainly may save this, but we are going to be adding another one to it. So you want to do, in this case, a PDF. So you're going to do a file, and it's going to be a plot. Okay. And you want to make sure you want to do, I think the one that always works is like this AutoCAD PDF that's halfway down. Some people, I think the Microsoft works, but other people, or the Adobe might work. Some people it doesn't, depending if you have Adobe or not. But the AutoCAD PDF always works. Then what we want to do is our paper size, we want it to be the 8.5 by 11 in ANSI A, okay? We want to make sure that the plot scale is fit to paper. And we also want to make sure what to plot, we want to put a window around it, okay? Now, I want to make sure that I get all the way around, okay? And not too far. So make it so it kind of, you know, is just around the part. If you go too far around it, then your part ends up being really small on the print that you make. So I'm going to click on there. And then what you're going to do is you're going to preview and make sure that everything is on the screen. If you don't have it fit to scale, then, or fit to paper, then all of a sudden you're only going to see a portion of this and you're not going to see it. So make sure you do a preview. Then what you're going to do is you're going to go up to the left and you're going to click on that plot, okay? And now it's gonna like navigate to where you want to save it. So this is where you want to save it so that the next time we get together and we add another one, you can navigate back to it. So I go on my OneDrive, I go underneath mechanical design, and then you're going to know that it's a PDF, not only by the .pdf, but it also puts model in back of it, okay? So you can just put that wherever you want to put that. And then it's going to give you this little preview that you can just X out of, okay? So kind of remember where that is, all right? Or you can always go back and do another PDF when it's time to upload it. But we'll be uploading the PDF. So any questions on this tutorial? All right. So then I'm going to stop the recording here.